Okay, so in a turn of events that I doubt anybody was expecting, this week's Payday 3 blog post actually has nothing to do with DLC 4 Fear and Greed, but instead showcases the brand new armor system dubbed Armour 2.0. Though in fairness, what else is there that we didn't really know about in Update 10? Other than some additional free content, there isn't really much shown off in Dev Update 8 that we haven't already covered here on the channel. The only new things shown in Dev Update 8 are 6 masks and 2 stickers. The Market Maven, Stock Ticker, and Profit are all part of Update 10's free content that you'll just get by logging into the game, and the other 3 masks and the 2 stickers are all part of the next round of Twitch drops. The only other thing that I wanted to mention about Dev Update 8 is that at the start it said that an intense summer is coming to a close. And of course we were told at the start of summer that we were going to be receiving 3 DLCs, but when those DLCs were shown, for some reason Syntax Error is the first one, despite not releasing in summer at all. In fact, Syntax Error didn't even release in 2024. Now obviously this isn't the most important thing in the world, but it was something that I noticed and felt like I had to say because I've heard nobody else talking about it and I wanted to get it off my chest. Speaking of things that are on my chest, let's talk about armor. For some, armor has been a major pain point of Payday 3's gameplay since launch, and it was one of the most frequent topics of discussion for the first 6 months. Until the second Operation Medic Bag blog post about the adaptive armor clarified that Starbreeze had no intention of reworking the armor system and instead simply planned to introduce new types of armor to the game, such as the aforementioned adaptive armor lining. To me, at least, this felt like a relatively firm closing of the book on a potential armor rework, at least for the first few years of Payday 3's lifecycle. Adaptive armor then came out and was a fantastic addition to the game. In fact, the update that brought adaptive armor was far and away the best update the game had received at that point, and so the new armor type became the most popular armor to use in the game. A few months later, we saw the addition of the armor repair kit and the clean slate skill, which made single chunk armor types more appealing, and even to this day, 9 out of 10 players are using one of those 2 types, either the single plate or the adaptive armor. And to be completely honest, I thought that was the end of it, at least for now. While the armor system wasn't exactly fixed, there were at least a couple of fun options to use, and occasionally you would see people running the 2, 3, and 4 plate armor. So while of course people had their preferences and there were better armors to use, they were all being used, and I thought Starbreeze would jump onto the next issue with the game, which they did for a while. But of course that doesn't mean that the discourse around armor stopped, and it turns out that Starbreeze were listening, and not only were they listening, but they were cooking as well. With that foundation set and a brief overview of the history of Payday 3's armor, let's take a look at everything we can expect coming with Armour 2.0. Planned for a December release, Armour 2.0 is still in the very early stages of development, and while that means it's a little further away, it also means that now is the time for feedback. So remember to make your voices heard, especially while Armour 2.0 is still in development and the system itself is quite malleable, because as a community our voices go a long way. In a nutshell, Armour 2.0 hands over the freedom of choice to the player, allowing you to purchase different armor frames containing either 1, 2, 3, or 4 chunks. Each one of these different armor frames come with varying speed penalties and unique perks like a passive ability, increased or in some cases decreased ammo capacity, and consumable slots. The single chunk armor frame has no speed penalty, grants the player an additional 20 health from first aid kits, decreases your maximum ammo capacity by 20%, and gives you 4 consumable slots. The 2 chunk armor frame places a light speed penalty on the player, allows you to start the heist with an additional tool, and lets you carry 3 consumables. The 3 chunk armor frame throws a medium speed penalty onto the player, allows you to replenish 1 throwable if you have none for a 10-second period, grants a 20% increase to your maximum ammo capacity, and allows you to carry up to 2 consumables. And finally, the 4 chunk armor frame burdens the player with a heavy speed penalty, makes using an armor repair kit or armor bag prevent all armor damage for 3 seconds, grants a 40% increase to your maximum ammo capacity, and also lets you carry 2 consumables. All of these armor types by default give you 6 downs and have a 0-second regen time penalty. However, these statistics are all affected by the type of armor you equip to the frame, as by using the new armor modding system, you'll be able to customize these frames as you see fit with 3 types of armor chunk: the normal armor chunk, adaptive armor chunk, and the new shield armor chunk. The normal armor chunk type has a regen delay of 1.5 seconds and removes 1 down, so this really is your standard day 1 Payday 3 armor type that takes trauma damage, has a 30% damage reduction, and when destroyed needs an armor bag to replenish. The adaptive armor chunk has a regen time delay of 2 seconds and removes 2 downs from the player. Again, this is your standard adaptive armor type that doesn't take any trauma damage but only has 10% damage reduction, and if destroyed needs an armor bag to replenish. The final and new armor type is the shield. With a 3-second regeneration delay and also removing 2 downs from the player, this new armor chunk type has no damage reduction, however will always fully regenerate even if the armor chunk breaks. It's worth remembering that these time penalties do indeed stack, so if you were running a 4-chunk frame consisting entirely of shield armor, it would take 12 seconds to regenerate. However, these regeneration times can likely be subverted through the correct skills. It's also important to note that the minimum amount of downs a player can have is 1, so if you equip 4 armor chunks of either adaptive or shield armor, which in theory would put you at -2 downs, the game will cap the penalty at 1 down. Of course, you could equip any of these armor chunk types to any of the armor frames as you see fit. Some examples included in the blog post are a 3-plate armor frame with 1 adaptive and 2 normal armor chunks, another 3-plate armor frame with 1 shield, 1 adaptive and 1 normal armor chunk, a 4-plate armor frame with 3 normal armor chunks and a shield, and finally a single plate armor frame solely consisting of a shield armor chunk. It's really important to remember that the order in which you equip these armor chunks to a given frame affects the order in which these chunks will take damage. So if your first armor chunk is a normal armor chunk and your second is adaptive, your normal armor chunk will need to break before the adaptive armor chunk takes any damage. I'm sure that seems really self-explanatory, but it felt worth mentioning nonetheless. These new armor frames can be bought from an in-game vendor and will work similarly to weapons in the sense that you can buy and customize as many armor frames as you would like so that you can equip them to different loadouts. I'm really looking forward to getting our hands on this new system, as I really think it has the potential to breathe new life into Payday 3's gameplay, both in terms of how the game feels and also in terms of the player numbers. It's no secret that a fair amount of people stepped away from the game due to its less than stellar armor system, so hopefully this overhaul has the ability to win back some of those players, even if they come back just to try the new system and end up staying for all of the other Operation Medic Bag changes that have been implemented over the last 9 months. I think it's incredibly important to keep the conversation around Armour 2.0 going while this system is still in its early stages of development. I really hope that the discussion of this system doesn't get overshadowed by the release of Update 10 and Fear and Greed on Monday, so feel free to head down to the comment section and let me know your thoughts on this new system. What do you like, what would you change, and what would you add? And while you're down there, consider clicking that subscribe button. The blog ends by saying that the team is working hard to get this feature ready for a December release, and that they would like to add new armor chunk types as well as skills to synergize with this new system in the future. The fact that we're getting an armor overhaul makes me extremely optimistic that in the future we might get a skill system overhaul as well, as the skill system specifically was cited as one of the reasons that the armor system wouldn't change way back in March. Honestly, I wouldn't be terribly surprised if the skill system rework is something that's already in the pipeline or potentially even in active development. And I do want to take a moment to commend Starbreeze on how quickly this information has been made public. Clearly this has been something that they've been working on for a little while. They said they started in around June, July, but the fact that this isn't going to be releasing till December, but they've told us about it now, is a really good sign. I like that the conversation has been opened up to everyone, especially, as I said, considering we're about halfway through the system's development, so there's still time to make changes if people have good ideas. Is this the sign of new leadership? As this week it was announced that Mio has stepped down as game director, with Almir and Andrea stepping in to fill the role. Well, only time will tell. I'm choosing not to touch on the topic of the change of leadership in this video, as I've actually made another video talking about exactly that. Click the video on screen now to learn what I think about the recent changes to the Payday 3 leadership and what that could mean going forward, and I'll see you in the next video. Right, so that video isn't live yet, so for now, on screen is a video of mine that the YouTube algorithm seems to think is the best fit for you. This section of the video will be removed once my video about Payday 3's leadership goes live, so if you are seeing this, comment something about wide C-stacks just to confuse everybody who won't see this in the future, and I'll see you in the next video.